Good afternoon. The following session, School Accreditation, will be presented by Dr. Jackquelyn Veith, who is the Director of Certification and Accreditation for the CCLE. Please welcome Dr. Veith.
Thank you. Well, I have, if you were at the plenary this morning, you realized, yes, I have been doing this for a while. So, but there are, every now and then, there's a new question. So I am excited to see what new questions come up from this particular session. So we are celebrating this year the CCLE accreditation. I will mention that we do have 24 schools that are accredited. We have about 8 schools in process. So we're very excited at the growth in schools that want to reflect on how they are performing and do better. So this is very encouraging. So for our accreditation, there are 4 marks that we would call standards possibly. Mark 1 is the theological commitment. Mark 2 is the classical education commitment. Mark 3 deals with governance. And Mark 4 deals with assessment and effectiveness. And by the way, if you are interested, I will be happy to email you this PowerPoint so you don't have to worry about taking too many notes. At the end of this slideshow is my email address, and I'll be happy to email it to you. Okay, so 4 marks. The board worked on those marks for several years, so they are still the same marks that they came up with back in the 2010 when they approved them. So when you have something that's right, you just don't feel like you have to change it constantly. You don't have to improve it. So 4 marks. We have changed how we expect the schools to reimburse the teams. There is an accreditation fee. It depends on the number of students, and I have a slide that will talk about that. And then we ask that the schools cover the travel expenses of the team members, the lodging, meals while they're at your school visiting. The school visit will probably be about a 3-day visit. So normally the team comes in on an evening to get, kind of get settled in. And then they're at the school the next day by 7:30 or whenever you would have a faculty meeting, or if you have faculty devotions or something. We're at the school by then. We're at the school in the classrooms that entire first day because we really concentrate on what we're looking for. The next day, we will be there, we'll be back for at least a half of a day, and then we start writing a report. That report will be delivered to you on the 3rd day. So, and briefly, what we're looking at, what we're doing is to see how the school is meeting each of the 4 marks. We have people on the team. We always have a pastor. I'll say that repeatedly. We have people on the team, and again, nobody makes any money out of this. But we also don't feel it's fair for us to pay to have to go and improve your school. So you cover the expenses of the school, of the team members. That's what I'm trying to say. So when you initiate the process, we start an account for you, a statement, so to speak. And that's how the CCLE bookkeeper keeps track of the expenses. And so CCLE will go ahead and reimburse the team members. For instance, when they buy a flight ticket that might be bought 3 or 4 months before the visit, well, we don't want the people to be out of that money just on their charge card for 3 or 4 months. And so CCLE goes ahead and reimburses them, but then puts that on the school's account. So they also will have the accreditation fee. So just mentioning that up front in case you were hoping that this was a free service that we offer. Unfortunately, it's not totally free. So Okay, so again, the school's responsible for the expenses of the team members as well as for the remainder of the accreditation fee. So let's talk about the marks. This is really what is the essential aspect of accreditation. And I will mention that there's kind of two perspectives on accreditation. There is accreditation, the approach which is you have to have 89 books by Martin Luther on your bookshelf, and if you don't, then you haven't met it. That's a very dogmatic, very restrictive kind of approach. There's also the approach which CCLE follows, which is we want to see what you have and how you see the school meeting this mark. Okay, we're going to look at your evidence. We're going to see how it works in practice. That's why we're spending at least a day and a half at your school. And then we're going to think as a team and come up with recommendations on how to help you become the better school that you want to be. So we're not trying to make you be like any other school, but we can share some practices from other schools that might benefit you as well, but our goal is to help your school. So have that in the back of your mind as we look at these benchmarks. So benchmark 1 is the commitment to Lutheran doctrine. We're looking for your Orthodox Lutheran doctrine and practices. Are they aligned with Scripture? We certainly hope so. Are they aligned with the doctrinal writings of the Lutheran Church? So here in particular, we're looking for the written adherence within the Constitution of the Church, within the documents, manuals that you may have, parent, student manuals, faculty handbooks, whatever you call them that you're using. And we want to see that you have written commitments, and that's the same one in all of them. You're consistent with your written commitments. And then we will be looking to see how those commitments are evident in your practices through the day. So what does that look like? Well, we're looking, as I say, for the written documents. When we were first starting, we were finding often that nothing was mentioned, that a church would start a school and had never addressed the fact that they were operating a school in their church constitution. So they would have a school board that was not authorized by their church constitution. So we will check for things like that. And that, again, is for the protection of the school and of the church. We want to see what the connection is between the congregation and the school. Now, we've had to kind of expand that because we've started running into schools that are RSOs, recognized service organizations. They're not sponsored by a church. That's not a problem. If you are an RSO, you have a commitment with the synod, and we can accept that. We also have started running into a few schools that are sponsored by an association. So in other words, several churches and congregations are sponsoring it. And so it doesn't have to be only one simple congregation or church that is your home body, so to speak. But we will want to make sure that there is some kind of written and clear connection between the school and whoever is founded it and is running it. We do expect to see the Lutheran identity. We expect to see it present in all of the school communities, or in all of the school communications. And I use an example of a school that is not even an American school. So first off, it wasn't even an American school. They had the glossiest admissions brochure you could ever have hoped for. And they really promoted their academics. They promoted their fine arts. They promoted their athletic program. And on the inside of the back cover, at the very bottom, and about font size 6, it mentioned Lutheran Church. That's not being that's not embracing your Lutheran identity very well. So we would expect, I don't know if any of you were in Pastor Castellero's presentation this morning, we'd expect to see you being upfront about, we're Lutheran, we are going to be Lutheran, and we will teach from our Lutheran understanding, and we welcome your child even if you're not a Lutheran, but it's important you realize that we are going to be Lutheran. So we look for that. We hope that your faculty and staff are members of the Lutheran Church. Now, that is a hope, and there are actually a few schools that are able to have 100% Lutheran faculty, which is a true blessing when they're able to have fellowship with each other in that manner. But they are in the minority. We do know there are a great number of Lutheran classical schools that cannot find Lutheran teachers. There are evidently places in the United States where Lutherans there's not very many Lutherans that live there. So it's not a deal breaker, but we hope that it's your goal to be having as strong of a Lutheran faculty as is possible. We hope or expect to see that your curricular choices support Lutheran doctrine. So I talked about looking at the bookshelves in the classrooms and saying we're not going to count how many books you have by Martin Luther. We are going to notice if you have any books on evolution, though. We're going to notice if there are some clearly some books that are clearly promoting in a non-Lutheran fashion some of the challenges that our society seems to think is perfectly fine and okay. It's just those religious people, and so we will hope that you are careful with your faculty, especially with the ones who are not Lutheran, who don't see any problem with evolution, so of course they would have some books on evolution. Those are the ones that you have to gently help understand that, well, in your church, that's maybe your practice, but for us and in our school, that will not be what we want to see. So, Mark 1, that's our commitment to Lutheran doctrine. Mark 2, we're looking at your commitment to classical education. And there's two parts to this one. The first one is focusing on the faculty's grasp and implementation of classical instructional methodology. I apologize that sounds so jargonistic, but we want to know how you teach. We want to know that your teachers are teaching in a tried and true fashion, so to speak. The second part is focusing on the curriculum that you're actually using, the choices of novels that you're using, the choices of subject matters that you're including. So one is on instruction and the other one is on content, and they both fall in under Mark 2. So for the focus on instruction, it's helpful, and I want to be careful and be respectful, but it's helpful if your faculty knows and can use some of the vocabulary of classical education, such as knowing what the trivium is, what the quadrivium is. Very commonly, I will ask the teachers, how do you explain it to the parents? Because that's going to help me know what they understand when you're having to explain it to someone else. If they can't remember the terminology, of grammar, logic, rhetoric. I mean, that's just 3 words. I mean, they may be able to talk it well enough or explain it well enough that they have the concept. That's okay. But if they don't have any idea whatsoever, then I think we would be doing some recommendation on professional development for your faculty at that point. We would also expect and hope to see that your faculty, as they instruct, that they are very intentionally developing their lesson plans in such a way that their instruction is cycling up into more rigorous achievements. So in other words, they have to start out at the grammar level. They need to teach, the students need to learn the foundations, but then they need to learn how to start manipulating, and then they need to learn how they're going to actually use it in real life. So we would hope that we would not be seeing instruction that was always focused just on the grammar level and never asked the students to do anything with the facts that they're going to be learning, and never asked them to apply it into a situation. We would hope that would not happen. So I kind of would say we hope that they get past the true-false version of everything is just true or false, and they never get into the gray areas. Frankly, life is full of a lot of gray areas, and even though it is true-false, they still need to learn to deal with that and be able to articulate it themselves. So that's part of Mark 2 on instruction. Part of Mark 2 on content, the scope and sequence of the curricular and co-curricular programs normed by the goal to raise up a virtuous, educated person for heavenly and earthly citizenship. In other words, this is where we're going to look at your choices of content, your choices. If you are using a particular publishing series, we want to see the series. Your literature choices here are going to be reviewed. We would hope that you would be having full novels. And of course, if you're having your students to read full novels, you're not reading 25 of them in a year. But how do you pick which ones you're reading, and how do you sequence them as the students are going through your grades or your forms or whatever you call your levels? So our goals here, we have 2 goals: that we want to see that your materials have been very carefully selected, because we want you to provide knowledge for the students to know, to analyze, and to communicate. And then secondly, we want the curriculum to support their learning of all the vocations that they will have in their lifetime. First of all, their vocation as a student, however long they're in the classroom. Their vocation as a child, as a son or daughter. Their vocation when they do get a job. Their vocation if they get married and as a spouse, and if they have children as a parent. We want them to be aware that these are all relationships through which they can practice their Christian faith and how they can practice it. So the content materials, and then also various ideas of vocation. So for this, we would hope we see, and this is the one place where there literally is a list that we will be checking to see, okay, are they covering all of this? Language, that's the reading, spelling, vocabulary, writing, speaking, history, literature, and then the mathematics, science, geography, music, art. Doesn't mean you have every one of those content areas every single day. That we don't expect that at all. But we do think that you would concentrate on making sure the majority of these are covered, and you have some way that you're addressing the ones that you don't have specifically. So in other words, we would not expect to have non-essential programs in place of what we consider to be an essential program. We expect that Western civilization would be presented in a balanced way. We think that many good things have come from Western civilization, as well as the mistakes that have come. But we are not going to focus only on mistakes in Western civilization, as if every other civilization has been good and perfect until the West came along. We hope that as you're creating your curriculum and as you're teaching it, that you're helping the students to see that knowledge is all integrated. And this is a great opportunity to see, for instance, the mathematics of poetry, the teaching them the rhyme patterns is very mathematical. And they may never have thought about that before. When you're teaching history, that's a great opportunity for a particular choice of your literature book to be matching it and to be supporting whatever eras of history you're covering too. So things like that to kind of tie and integrate the curriculum together are very helpful and what we would want to see. We do expect you to teach Latin. Now, some schools have gone so far as to also offer Greek. I mean, this is wonderful in terms of the future of the church because they're getting all these men ready for pre-sem. This is great. But Latin is the source of so much of our English language. It's such a powerful vocabulary support. It's very mathematical. It helps train the brain. It installs the habitus of learning. So we would expect it to be offered as a content area, not just as a club that is only sometimes. So I'm kind of doing this and not this as I go along. Okay, so are we ready for Mark 3? Can't wait? Okay, yes.
Could you elaborate on the Latin and Greek and how often that, in the schools that you've worked with, how often that's taught, or to what extent it's taught?
There are some schools, the larger schools actually do seem to figure out a way to do it at least 3 times a week. So they have, it's not a block schedule, but they'll have the normal daily schedule, and they've got their specials or their music and art, Latin, sometimes the science labs. They've got that time period, a couple of those in a day. And so on different days, it's these that's how they work in the different ones. And that's fine. But I have known of schools that have only offered Latin 1 time a week. We would wish it were more than that, but at least it's once a week. It's when you're saying, oh, this is a voluntary club which you could join if you feel like it, we would not think that that's a serious attempt to include Latin. So at least once a week, at least. So generally by the time you've had students taking Latin, usually they start by the 3rd grade, but some schools start at kindergarten. I mean, just, teaching the words for nouns of things in the classroom. Chair, desk, wall, door, boy, girl. It's very simple vocabulary. And then they work their way into some easy mottos, and then they work their way into some prayers. And, so they're kind of getting students used to it. And then by grade 3, they usually are starting to do more of an intentional, serious, let's start working on, well, I know there's a couple of Latin presentations that are going on, so they could probably fill it in. Just from our perspective, we would hope that by the 3rd grade or so that there would be some kind of intentional teaching of it. But by the time they've been doing Latin from 1st grade, say up through 10th grade, they ought to know Latin. And so some schools, then, the pastor who knows Greek has been giving them the option that if they want to stop Latin, they could pick up some Greek. So we're certainly not requiring Greek. We are requiring Latin, but we're not requiring Greek. So, does that help?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Okay. Yes.
The document on your website under this mark also mentions the great works. Could you just elaborate? Is there anything specific that you're looking for related to the great works being covered in the curriculum?
Again, we don't require specific works of literature to be taught. But I would be surprised if you weren't including the Iliad and the Odyssey. I mean, there are just some that are known to be truly great, and that they're classics. So we'll just look to see what you are in your literature sequence. Which ones are you including? Not requiring anything specific. We are not requiring something specifically, but what are the books? Sometimes we ask, do you have a literature selection policy to guide your teachers if they want to choose, maybe they're tired of Romeo and Juliet. I don't know, I would never get tired of it, but maybe they're tired of it and they want to switch out a different play. Is there a policy or a way that you would allow them to? Now, if they want to switch it out for a current contemporary play, see, that's where a policy would come in handy, because that you would know, no, they can't. I can't even think of a current contemporary play, but yeah, I'm so stuck on Shakespeare, I can't get past him. So, but we would just ask, and again, as you're teaching in your history lessons going up, that's just such a great way to connect your literature. So whatever novels or plays or poetry you're having them study for literature, if it connects with your history pattern, well, that alone is going to kind of guide you. So, yes?
As that particular question, because we have been looking, I've been looking to see, what literature should we be using and what do other schools use. There are several of the Lutheran schools, the classical schools out there that have their literature lists out there.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're looking to see, that's what I did. I went to see what are other people using, and
That's a good point. I know that Mount Hope, I think, lists their literature list. The resource library. Once you become in process school, you get access to the resource library, and we've collected over the last 5 years. We've been collecting all the documents from every school we visited. Thank you, all of you schools. And that then is an opportunity. You can look at it and see what have the other schools used as a particular literature resource, or at least get a contact of being able to email and say, hey, what do you teach in your upper school for whatever content? So, thank you for reminding me of that. So, okay, I'll go on to Mark 3. And this is the institutional governance. Now, Mark 1 and 2 are kind of the meat and bone of classical education, classical Lutheran education, because that's the Lutheran and that's the classical. Mark 3 and 4 are also important, but it has happened that we have schools that are weaker in these two areas. That doesn't stop you from getting accredited. That doesn't stop you. Deficiencies in Mark 1 and 2 are a bigger problem. But Marks 3 and 4, you can repair them kind of more easily. So, for Mark 3, we're looking at your institutional governance. We don't care what you call it. It can be a school board. It can be the daily school council. It can be, a variety of different terms. And I've run across quite a few, but we would just want to make sure that there is some entity that's overseeing the school. I mean, you have your students and you expect the teachers to oversee them. You probably have a principal or a headmaster or some supervisor to oversee the faculty. You need to have some group that's overseeing the overseers. And so how is that functioning? So, do you have this functioning group which has established the rules, regulations, responsibilities that are in harmony with God's revealed orders of creation? This is the nitty-gritty of your documents. This is where is your student handbook, your student parent handbook, your faculty manual, your board manual. Do you have them all written down, and are they consistent? And again, when we first started, this was an area where we would have a mission statement in the faculty handbook that was different from the mission statement in the parent-student handbook. And then, what do you mean faculty manual? They didn't even have one. So, as we've tried to help all of our schools kind of develop these, this is to protect the school and to protect the church. So, we look at what you have in writing, and again, the resource library has got a lot of examples of them that you can read through and decide, I like the way they worded it. I think I will borrow that, and that's fine. Schools know that when they share their documents, it's because some other school might benefit from it. So we look for that. Now, one thing that we look for is that there will be the accountability of parents. If you're a tuition-supported school, do you have the parents sign some form that says they understand they have to pay their tuition? Let's do it, tuition for their student. Do you have that in writing? So things like that is for the benefit of the functioning of the school. So if you have an early childhood program, we can also include that in the accreditation. If you don't, then just ignore and you just put not applicable for this. But if you do have that, then you are welcome to ask us to look at your early childhood program and see, make recommendations about that one as well. So again, this is very close to like we had in Mark 1 about some kind of written constitutional authority, that there is some group that oversees the operation of the school and that oversees the supervisor, and that you have useful personnel and student policies, that they're written, communicated, and enforced. Because if you don't enforce them, why do you have them? That weakens you. Every policy that's not enforced weakens you. So we would rather you got rid of the policies if you're not enforcing them. So that's why it says policies may be written or not enforced, or they may be outdated, they may be missing, they need revision, whatever. Those are problems. Okay? All right, Mark 4. I went the wrong way, sorry. There.
You had mentioned those example policies that are on the website.
Yes.
Are those freely accessible, or do you have to be a member of the CCLE to access them?
There are two ways to get access to the library resource. I'm assuming that's the resource library. I'm saying it correctly. You can be an institutional member, and that some of the schools that haven't wanted to quite commit to starting the process have chosen to be institutional first because they get access to all those documents, They can kind of get out, be working on getting everything lined up. And then they can apply to start the accreditation process. Once you start that process, you have 3 years. So there is a time factor, the clock starts ticking. We needed to set a time limit because we had some schools that were starting and never made any more movement. And we want you to finish because it doesn't do you, we can't help you until we can actually get you through this process. So, either way of those is institutional or starting it. You both groups get access to the resource library. Yes.
Can anyone at the school access that resource library, or is it just administration?
Usually it's just administration,
Okay.
but the administration can see it and share it. But or two people could be looking at the computer. So.
As a general rule, is it the school committee or board that has the access, or is it delegated to an employee?
It would be whoever it wanted to. Somebody would have to be the name for it, but that could be the headmaster, or it could be the board chairman, or it could be the lead teacher, or it could be the treasurer of the church, for all I know. It's one person name. At least for the institutional membership, it runs that way. Once you become an accredited school, then everyone on your faculty has access to it.
Oh, okay.
Because we're really trying to build up having teacher sharing. It's like teacher sharing lesson plans, units on various topics. That's still at the growth baby step area level. We're not as far along on that one. So, any more questions on 3? Okay, Mark 4. What are we looking for in Mark 4? We're looking for self-reflection and analysis to improve your school. Now, I think we do this almost automatically without even realizing that's what we do. But most schools, especially if you're a smaller school, but well, actually any size school, you're acutely aware of how many students you need to be able to make the budget. I mean, it's easy to think of this in financial terms, but we're asking you to think of this not only in financial terms, but what about in academic terms? What do you want your students to be able to do when they graduate from your school? Are they on track to be able to do that? We also want you to be thinking about what are your future plans for the school. I was speaking with somebody earlier today, and I said one of the most fascinating developments in the last 5 years among our CCLE schools, we've almost always just been mostly K-8 schools. K-8. No, last 5 years, a lot of schools have started adding 1 level a year of high school to their K-8s. So we probably have 8 schools that are on their way to being K-12, even though they're not in big cities and they're not, they don't have access to every possible advantage for having a high school. There's some trade-offs for it, but they're determined that they're not going to educate children up to the 8th grade and then turn them over to the public high school. So there are ways to add a level or 2 levels and be able to continue educating our children within a Lutheran environment, which is very encouraging. So we want to know if that's, what are your plans for your school? Are you just going to keep, going along the way you are? Or have you thought about it? If you're growing, how are you managing your space needs, your facility needs? Do you need another building? If you're landlocked, are you going to just build another level up? Or what are you thinking? That's mostly what it is. What are you thinking about your school's future? Because if you're not thinking about your school's future, what is the future of your school going to be? It's going to be haphazard. It's going to be whatever. But so we'll look at whether you're evaluating your teachers, and we'll look at whether the governing board is evaluating the headmaster. We will ask parents about their satisfaction with their teachers, also with the way that the school communicates with them. We will try to talk to parents who don't belong to your church to find out why are they sending their students to your school if they don't attend your church. We'll ask you, do you have all of the children in your congregation attending your school? There's some who are, but there's more schools who don't have all of the children in the congregation because you don't have sports or whatever. Maybe you don't have a good chess club. I don't know. But you really want to have to see evidence that the school board takes their responsibilities seriously, that they're thinking at the end of every school year, you're already preparing whatever changes you might think are going to be beneficial to strengthen the school for the next year. That's what we want to see. We also want to see it in writing. So if you're having board meetings, which please do have board meetings or whatever you're calling your group, keep minutes of it. That's to protect you. Because if somebody says, oh, they discussed this issue and they promised me that they would do X, Y, Z and they didn't do it, you need to have the minutes to be able to say, oh, I'm sorry, we didn't say X, Y, Z, we said A, B, C. You must have misheard. So I didn't used to stress the documents being in writing so much, but we just live in a, let's say it. Yes, we live in that kind of a society. And again, your concern and our concern is to, one, improve the school, but two, protect the school. Protect the students and protect the school, protect the teachers. And good governance will take care of that. Will go a long ways in taking care of that. Okay, I've talked mostly about this, that you have a strategy in place to regularly evaluate all the aspects of the school. When you're having your school into your your church building, I mean, that's kind of easy. Usually your trustees that take care of the church are also taking care of the school. But if you have a separate school building, that's you have to have a separate way of doing it. So we're looking to see that you have expectations of something, some kind of expectation, some kind of goals in all of the areas: physical, fiscal, academic. I would even say spiritual. Are your students, by the time they leave you in the 8th grade, depending on your congregation's practice, are they confirmed? Did they go finish confirmation, or are they starting confirmation? So you have, when you have all this information, you evaluate it. You look at it and you think about it. And what does this mean? What is this telling us? Our students can still not tell the difference between your and the 7th grade. I think we need to put that in the curriculum somewhere. So, and again, that's a silly example, but we want to see that you're having on a regular basis, whether it's annual, that's regular, that you're thinking about what you've done and what you want to do and what are the steps to get you from where you are to where you want to be. Okay. Now, I've been doing this forever, it seems. So we're starting to spread out and have more people involved in leading the teams. And they told me they'd be here, but they're not. Anyway, Mrs. Jocelyn Benson, who's headmaster of Wittenberg Academy, has been on multiple accreditation site visits, so she's very experienced. She knows what she's doing. Pastor Renee Castellero, again, who is teaching the 3-session What is Classical Lutheran Education, been on multiple ones of schools with all sizes, and Mrs. Julia Hobrecht, who has been a headmaster, and again, multiple site visits, very soundly. So one of those three or I serve as the team leadership. What's the best way to prepare yourself to take your school through accreditation? Serve on a visit. Serve on a team. If you're on a team and you see from the team's perspective what we're looking for, that helps you know, oh, this is what I want to have. I better get my handbooks better start looking very similar in the future. I have a document about what it's like to serve on a CCLE visitor team. If you are interested, please do let me know. We are anticipating at least 5 visits next school year. So, yeah.
What are the prerequisites for that team person?
They have to attend this session. They have to have an understanding of what's classical education, what's Lutheran education. They have to be discreet. We are, team members learn a lot about a school. You see the inside workings of a school. That stuff is very, what's the word I'm trying to think of? More than discreet. I mean, you can't share that.
Confidential.
Say again?
Confidential.
Yes, thank you. It's confidential. And so we have to know that you will respect all of the confidential access that you have. We look at documents like the budget, and we ask questions about line items in the budget. There are things that, you just don't want everybody on the street to know about your school, so you have to be confidential. So I'm also, however, do think that in addition to helping headmasters really see what it's like, and not just headmasters, faculty, or anybody who wants to go through it, I think it's a great professional development opportunity. When you get to see the inside working of another school, really opens up your eyes to, oh, yeah, we could do that, or, whoa, not going to try that one. I've been to a couple of schools where it's so incredibly charming. They do not end classes with a bell or a clock or anything like that. The teacher starts singing a hymn, and all the students then in the class join in the hymn as they put their stuff away, they line up at the door, and they're all just singing this hymn. And then they're going down the hall to the next classroom where they're going to be. They're all just singing a hymn. That's how they come in from the playground when PE is over. The PE coach starts singing a hymn. It's amazing. The same school, at the end of the school day, they start singing a hymn. Everybody in the school starts singing a hymn. And the students all have been assigned specific cleanup duties. And they go to the closet and they get the broom and they get the vacuum and they get the duster and they all clean up the school every day while they're singing a hymn. So you might be interested in trying that sometime. I was at a school where when it was bathroom break time, the whole class picked out a book and they went down, they sat on the floor next to the bathroom, and 2 by 2 they were dismissed to go in the bathroom. The rest of the time they were all sitting there reading. I thought that was brilliant. Talk about not a waste of time. So, I mean, you see other things going on. schools all have something that's unique to them. They have a speech contest or an art contest, or they do a particular field trip type of experience, or they have an outdoor ed opportunity, and you learn about how they do it. And you go, oh, yeah, we could do that. Or something that would be similar, something that would work for our community, for our students. So, if you're interested, yes.
Where do we get the document for
I was just going to say, I'm going to have a piece of paper out here, and I'm going to put name, email, and then I'll put site visitor question mark, and if you're interested in that, with your email, I will send that document.
that? Okay.
So, yeah, see, I said there's a document for this, so.
So
Yes.
you don't have to be an educator to be part of it.
You do not have to be an educator.
Is that
No.
a good thing or a bad thing?
Well, it's interesting. I don't know. You have to care about classical education, and I would guess that you need to be affiliated with a Lutheran church that has a classical school. So, because we want you to take that benefit back to help the school. Yes?
And we were accredited through also with ELS. It was a LCMS team member, which CCLE allow and ELS.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The board has talked about that before. We would encourage that, very much so. For any of the, I'm glad you brought that up because that does remind me to make sure I'm making this point. If you're interested in LSA co-accreditation, we do have an agreement with them that you can do the CCLE process because it fits classical emphasis. And if you want co-accreditation with NLSA, you fill out an application with your district ed exec, you pay the money, and they will recognize you. So you don't have to do their process. I support this agreement very much because I think ours is easier, and frankly, I think ours is more useful to you. Theirs is 8 standards, and although it covers a lot of the same material, they have a lot of things that are, you have to have A, B, C, D. These documents are required, and we don't do it quite that strenuously. Yes?
As far as state accreditation goes, though, you are not affiliated with any state accreditation at this point, correct? The CCLE is not?
Not at this point, and that's
why
where
you're
NLSA,
co-branding with
yeah,
or
that's when NLSA co-accreditation is very useful. I will say, I've been working on the CCLE board about this particular issue, but that's all I can say. So maybe next year we'll have a different solution. But you can get at least 2 accreditations for the price of 2 accreditations, but only one process. You don't have to do 2 site visits, is what I'm trying to say. So we do welcome if the ed exec or some other accreditation commissioner from the LCMS wants to tag along, we welcome that. We're trying to educate people about what classical education is. So, okay, let me see what else I've got. Okay, if you indicate that you want to serve on a site visit and you get on a team that works out because of the geography, your location, the time of the dates of it, there are certain things that I will be, or your team captain will be sharing with you. Frankly, it's really wonderful. We used to do this with binders, but now we're in this technology age that we can have shared files on the Google Drive. So it's much easier than when we had to ship binders back and forth. So, but there's certain things that you would have access to weeks before you have your trip, before the site visit. We also have a pre-visit team meeting by Zoom, where the team captain goes through it one more time to see if you have any questions now that you've had a chance to look at the material, and to see if you are ready, if you have any food allergies, some nitty-gritty details like that. I'm seeing that here's the answer to your question about what qualifications do you have to have. You have to recognize school documents as evidence, understand what they're doing. Again, this is the accreditation session that would qualify you for that. It helps if you like to write, if you enjoy writing, because you will do a lot of writing in your particular sections. We have the 4 marks. We usually have 2 or 3 or 4 team members. For a small school, we'll have just 2 because we're trying to be very sensitive to your financial needs. So that means each visitor has 2 marks to deal with. When we have 3 site visitors, then one of them is going to have 2 to deal with, and then 2 of them are concentrating on 1 each. When we have 4 for the larger schools, and larger schools would be schools with 100 or more students, then each team visitor is doing 1 mark. But when we get to the end of everybody writing their first draft, then everybody on the team checks out what everybody else is writing. Because we may have observed something differently that the person who was responsible for that particular mark didn't observe. So we collaborate on the final report tremendously. Okay, so, here, teams always include a Lutheran pastor to deal with Mark 1. That is never assigned to a layperson. That person will always, that pastor will always meet with the pastor of the congregation or whoever is the connecting group that is sponsoring the school. You can, in an effort to save money, we can have 1 person from your own district, but we don't want to have more than 1 person because we want to be transparent. We want to keep it very open. We also have a policy on conflict of interests. So if you have a child in a school, we will not let you accredit that, be on that site visit team. If you have an adult child on the faculty, you cannot go be on that team. So when possible, we try to get people that have the same type of school. So if you're a small school, we want somebody on the team who's familiar with the challenges of small schools. If you have a large school, we want people who are familiar with large schools. So we try to do it that way. Now, here are the accreditation fees, and again, these have not changed for several years. So a smaller school, the total accreditation fee is $500. A medium-sized school, $750, and the larger schools are charged $1,000. So there are the accreditation fees plus the expenses of your team. So I think I need to hurry. Once you are accredited, the first year you're accredited, you get celebrated like we're going to be celebrating some schools that are getting accredited. The next year, in April, you'll get an annual report form to fill out. And it's asking how many students did you have? Did you make any changes? So have you bought a new location for your school? Have you added a program? Have you just things like that? Do you have a new headmaster? That happens more often than you'd think. So during the 4 years that you're accredited, that's what you tell us. That's how you report back to us. And then it's time for your renewal. The year that you have your renewal, you don't do that annual report because you're doing the self-study all over again. You don't have to pay the annual fees because you're paying accreditation fees. We're trying to be very even about this. And so finally, there's my email address that you may contact me with. And again, I'm going to have this piece of paper here. If you will write your name, your email address very neatly, and your if you're interested in serving on a team, I will appreciate it. Are there any more questions? Yes.
So,
Once you pay the initial fee is when you get the application? Is that
Yes,
correct?
yes.
Is there any way to get that application without officially starting the process to see like what's on it and what we need to like have done? Or not?
Well, are you gonna promise me that you're gonna apply?
We really want to apply someday. We're just trying to evaluate if we're at a point where we can manage it. Like, this is just year 3 of our school, and we're still, there's things happening, like the director, headmaster position, and I know that part of that too is that you're supposed to have, during the process, you need that same person. But we want to be as prepared as possible, I guess, for when we do, for the point when we do start. I just don't know.
And you're worried about the 3-year time limit?
Yeah, a little bit the time limit, but also just as a board, our board is trying to know when a good point is to start. Like, we're not quite sure if this is the
Okay.
year to start or not because.
I do think I have something that, it's not the actual document of the actual application, but I think I could send you benchmarks which would show the type of evidence that we accept for
Okay.
each aspect of it. And you can kind of go through and say, okay, we got 2 or 3 of these. If you have 2 or 3 of everything, you're
Okay.
in good shape, so.
Okay.
Someone else had, yes, sir.
So like after you fill out the letter of intent and the application, what's like an average timeline for like if you did become accredited and how many months, years, or whatever after that?
It depends on how hard you are, how efficient you are at working at it. It could actually be done in 4 months. If you love to stay up at night and write out things, and if your faculty are willing to fill out their personnel information forms, and they like to write their paragraphs about how they teach and what they're doing, it can be done that quickly. Generally, I think we have people that take maybe a year, 1 school year. I would say don't overwhelm your faculty with this. I happen to love accreditation. I can't believe there are people who don't, but there are. And teachers think of it as more work. Honestly, that's what I've been told. So I wouldn't overwhelm them with saying you've got to have this done in a week. I would give them a quarter. By the end of quarter 1, I want the personnel forms returned. By the end of quarter 2, I want, so you could get through this.
I'm glad we went over this. We're not too strong on number 4. That's where we have to do the most work.
Well,
But we're pretty good, I mean, we're decent with number 2 and 3.
well, I don't want to say ignore number 4, but you get recommendations. Recommendations are ideas that the team thinks and has all agreed on to help you strengthen your school. Recommendations are our directions to you to do this. Recommendations you have to address. We'll also give you suggestions. If a team member thinks, oh, if you just went to the 3-year lectionary instead of the 1-year lectionary, it'd be easy. Well, you can ignore suggestions, but you got to work on recommendations. And I will tell you, one recommendation every school gets is your teachers should be certified. So I'll see all of you here tomorrow about the same time for the certification session. But it doesn't need to take super long. But you do have to have somebody who's, I like the word project manager. So, yes.
So for a young school, just starting out, maybe just adding basically grade level at a time, do you have any advice on at what point is it a good idea to even think about?
As soon as you've done 1 year, get accredited. Because you have less history, and you get a team that's coming in to say, oh, this is what you're doing really good. Keep going. Or if you keep doing this, this is going to cause a problem at this level. So would you rather have 5 years and not have an extra outside team come in and help you? Or I mean, like the section on history, you have 1 year of history to write versus longer. That's a silly example, but yes, sir.
So thinking of that too, I've been in Michigan for so long now, I'm in Florida. We're doing the adding a grade a year thing, starting next year. But we're just finishing our NALS, not NALS. Yes. Oh my gosh, I've been doing it for so long. We're just finishing that up. Should we wait till that's up for renewal again to start this, or?
I would. I wouldn't put your faculty through the NLSA and then turn around and say, surprise, we're doing CCLE.
Yeah.
That would be awfully harsh. Have you already had the NLSA visit?
They're coming. See, I'm not a part of that because I just got hired last week.
Ah, wow.
So the people who were doing that, they're doing it because that staff member's still on staff. She's just a new title now.
Okay.
So I just oversee her.
Well, I think that it would be very challenging to try to.
Yeah, that's why I was seeing if we should wait. Then once that's up for renewal,
I would start laying the groundwork about how next time we should do CCLE.
I'm starting. I just found out there's no faculty handbook at this place. So.
Okay.
We can come down and help you.
Yeah, what?
You're in Florida?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll come down and help you.
Tom might be happy doing that. We're real experienced in writing these things now.
I know I've gone over time, so I apologize, but make sure that you sign in. For one thing, that's how I know you were here. And if you are interested in serving on teams. And when is Compline Festival?
10 till.
10 till?
So you have 11 minutes.
Okay. We can probably,
You don't have to run.
thank you for coming.
She said last, I don't think